Dan Sullivan. He's a representative for District 53 in Jonesboro, and he's a state senator-elect. Dan, thank you so much for joining us, taking the time out to kind of explain what's going on at our state capital.
Sure. Yeah, my pleasure. Glad to join you. Glad to be here.
Well, thank you very much. Well, can you kind of give us an update on the COVID issue? What's going on with COVID in Arkansas?
Well, it seems to be that the cases are really isolated in just a few parts of the state. We're seeing some small outbreaks and small continuations of cases in other part of the states. Like I'm here in Craighead County in Jonesboro, and our cases really are not growing much. We're having, I think we had 21 cases in Craighead County, but most of the outbreak seems to be in northwest Arkansas and down in southwest Arkansas, and a little bit today in central Arkansas. But it seems like the rest of the state's doing pretty good.
That's really good to know. So what's the legislature doing about the shutdowns? And, when do you think Arkansas are going to be back to normal? I mean, normal day life, if we're ever going to be there.
That's really a great point. And, most of the state, like Craighead County, we're ready to open back up. And I'll give you a very good example. I talked with several of our restaurant owners today and the last few days about the restrictions that are placed on them. And although the guidance is good, having the weight of law behind the guidance makes them an enforceable rule, which the health department has to carry out. So when they have a restaurant who's reported or another facility that's reported, then they have to investigate. And they're finding that in some cases, they are finding people that are not following the rule. Now, the funny thing about that is, Joey, it's not funny at all, I guess, if you're a restaurant, but they have a rule that if you have a self-service drink machine and you use the cup to start your drink and start the machine, that's okay. But if you use your finger to push a button, that's not okay. Or if you wear a glove to push the button, that's not okay. Or if you use a napkin to press the button, that's not okay. So these restaurants that have a little bit of self-service business are getting citations from our health department and could face the loss of their licensure, have to close down over just some common sense things. I'll give you another example that it's just not good common sense. Here in Jonesboro, we have a number of gas stations and convenience stores that have carryout. So you can go in there and get your fried chicken and your potato wedge and other things. You can get that, walk in there, no mask, get your stuff and head back out. However, if you go into a restaurant to pick up your carryout, you have to wear a mask. So you have two different businesses doing essentially the very same thing that fall under different guidance. So we're threatening our restaurants with closing them down or getting a $1,000 or so fine, while another business is doing the very same thing. So I've been in touch with several other legislators around the state, have reached out to the governor's office, just asking for some clarity, and let's get some consistency across what we do. Our restaurants, I know here in Jonesboro, I'm sure throughout the state, they want to protect their customer. They want to protect the consumer. They want to do what's right, and they're trying to do what's right. But we have so many regulations enforced in so many different ways that often the inspectors don't even know what rule they're having to follow is.
That's a really good point. Now, where do you draw the line between what restaurants should be doing and ought to be doing and the confusion there? I mean, it seems like, some restaurants get to open, other restaurants don't get to open. We're going to the grocery store right now, and that's okay, but we can't order some food from our local businesses and keep them, in business.
Exactly. And you can go into your local hardware store, you can go into your grocery store, and people are touching all those items, including open food items, and people are handling those, and that's apparently not an issue. However, you can't walk into a restaurant and walk 6 feet and pick up a to-go bag and walk out. And our restaurants are limited to 50% capacity, or 33 1/3% capacity. I don't think there's a restaurant in Arkansas. I'm almost positive there's not one in Jonesboro that can even pay their expenses. And in some cases, it costs them more to open than it does to operate at 33.33% capacity. So we've got to have some relief in this soon, especially in regions like Craighead County and Jonesboro, where we're not having problems in escalating cases, and we're especially not having cases in restaurants and in food preparation, or in food service and delivery restaurants. Joey, another part of this COVID issue is the governor's executive order that pretty much gives him complete power over all rules and regulations. So the governor can effectively make law and make rules without legislative approval. He took that necessarily, I think, when the COVID outbreak started, but he has now used it and now continued that executive order, I think, until early July. There's a lot of concern among the citizens of Arkansas and the legislature about the executive having that much power. So there are, and am one that's drafting legislation to limit the governor's executive authority. Many other states have it. Several other states have that power to the legislature. And it can be done in a couple of ways. One, and probably the simplest, is to say after a certain number of days, 10 or 15 or 20 days after the governor executes that order, that the governor must call the legislature back into session. And then if he extends that order, the legislature then must approve that. And that gives the legislature a co-equal branch. Under this executive order that could last up to 60 days, it's not really a co-equal branch of government. I'm hearing that concern from the people. I'm hearing that concern from the legislature. I feel quite sure that if the governor does call a special session to deal with some of these COVID things, that there'll be a sincere drive to give the legislature some of that power and give us the approval and review authority that our Constitution calls for.
Well, Dan, do you think that's pretty bipartisan at this point between Democrats and Republicans? And, are people crossing the aisle to come up with a solution to this issue right now? Or do you think it's very, there's pockets of people fighting for different things in our legislature right now?
Well, actually, it's only one pocket. It's in the governor's hands. And the governor has complete authority under his emergency order. No legislator has any voice. If we're out of session, we can advocate for, but we can't advocate any more or less than the regular citizen can for anything. So the fact that I might call the governor's office or call my senator's office, it's no different than what any citizen can do, which is what we need to be doing, is just seeking some consistency, some equity, and just treat everybody with good common sense. I think that's the answer to a lot of this stuff. And I know the governor's plate is full right now with the protests and things that are going on, but it's just another example of giving some people some freedom. And our Constitution is based on people of good conscience, using their good conscience to do what's right. And we have so many people here in Northeast Arkansas and around the state of Arkansas who have that good, godly conscience, who want to do what's right. Just let us have a little bit more freedom. We'll do what's right here in Craighead County in this COVID issue when we have good guidance, and it's the right thing to do. And I hope we'll take some steps that way pretty quickly. Maybe tomorrow.
Well, I hope for sure. Well, Dan, thank you so much for giving us an update on the COVID issue. We sure appreciate you fighting for all Arkansans, and you're definitely doing the right thing. So thank you very much. We sure appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome.